Hello guys, welcome to your own clinical YouTube channel. So today we'll be discussing about systemic vascular resistance and pulmonary vascular resistance, basic concepts and their calculations from various inputs. Okay, so one part is the MCQ part. You must be facing this kind of calculations in MCQ. Also, during advanced cardiac output measurement instrumentations, you must be facing this kind of values like SVR or PVR, SVRI, cardiac index, and all. So, let me simplify this concept for you today. Okay, so let me draw a simplified diagram of heart, and let me just explain the concept of pulmonary vascular resistance and systemic vascular resistance. So here this is right atrium, this is left atrium, right ventricle and left ventricle. Okay. So here is SBC and blood goes from right atrium to right ventricle and from right ventricle via pulmonary artery to the pulmonary circulation. So this is the pulmonary bed. We are naming it as pulmonary vascular resistance of this region, or PVR, or resistance of the pulmonary vascular bed. So this blood from the pulmonary vascular bed is returning to the left atrium, okay, via pulmonary veins. So in pulmonary artery, the pressure is measured as pulmonary arterial pressure, okay, and the blood returning from the pulmonary circulation to left atrium, okay, and the left atrial pressure, which is basically the representation also called pulmonary arterial occlusion pressure, PAOP. Okay, so this is the concept of pulmonary vascular resistance, in which the driving pressure is the difference between pulmonary arterial pressure or PA pressure or mean PA pressure and pulmonary arterial occlusion pressure. Okay, so now let us understand the concept of systemic vascular resistance. Okay, so this is systemic vascular resistance. As we know, via aorta, blood comes from left ventricle and goes to the systemic circulation. Ultimately, organ perfusion occurs, and via venous system, this blood gets returned to right atrium via SBC and IVC. Okay, so this is our venous system, where our pulmonary, our systemic vascular resistance is being perfused, and the driving pressure is the difference between, here in aorta it is mean arterial pressure, and the returning pressure is CVP. So here across this systemic vascular resistance, the driving pressure is the difference between mean arterial pressure and central venous pressure. Okay, let us quickly understand again. When we are discussing about pulmonary vascular resistance, the driving pressure is the difference between mean PA pressure and pulmonary arterial occlusion pressure, and the resistance is PVR. Okay, when we are discussing about systemic vascular resistance, the driving pressure is the difference between mean arterial pressure and central venous pressure, right? Okay, so let us discuss the basic concept of a resistance. One second. So when we are discussing about the concept of current, electricity and resistance, when current flows from A to B and there is a resistance R, electricity is I, and the potential difference between point A and B is, you can say, delta V. So as we remember, resistance is calculated as change in potential difference divided by flow or electricity. So R equals to del V by I, or resistance equals to change in potential difference divided by flow. Okay. So if we apply this concept of resistance among the systemic vascular resistance bed and pulmonary vascular resistance bed. So for a calculation of SVR, let us understand the same concept. This is a systemic vascular resistance and this is PVR. Okay. So the point A, B in both the setup will be different. So what is the driving pressure for a systemic vascular resistance? It is the main arterial pressure is the higher gradient and the returning pressure is CVP. So this is from the left ventricle to right atrium. So the potential difference here is main arterial pressure minus CVP. Okay. So let us discuss about pulmonary vascular resistance. Here the driving pressure is PA pressure, which is higher, and the returning pressure is pulmonary arterial occlusion pressure, which is the pressure of left atrium, and PA pressure originates from the right ventricle. Okay, so here the potential difference is mean PA pressure minus pulmonary arterial occlusion pressure. Okay, so when we calculate systemic vascular resistance, R equals to V by I. So as we have already discussed, here potential difference is mean arterial pressure minus CVP divided by I, or flow or current. Here it is cardiac output. Did you get the concept? Hope you got it. Okay, right? Again, PVR R equals to V by I. What is the potential difference here? It is mean PA pressure minus pulmonary arterial occlusion pressure divided by what is the current flow or the flow? It is the cardiac output. Did you get the concept? Okay. So if we calculate this value, let us understand the units first. So mean arterial pressure and central venous pressure, they are expressed in millimeter of mercury, mmHg, divided by cardiac output is expressed as liter per minute. Okay, the same goes for pulmonary vascular resistance. So this is the unit in which they are expressed, millimeter of mercury divided by liter per minute, and this is called Wood's unit. Okay, so in MCQs you will be given various parameters to calculate. Okay, for example, let us consider an MCQ, and it will be given various parameters like heart rate, mean blood pressure, pulmonary arterial occlusion pressure, mean PA pressure, and saturation, and cardiac output, central venous pressure. All these parameters are given, and you are asked to calculate systemic vascular resistance or pulmonary vascular resistance. So for systemic vascular resistance, as you know, only three parameters are important for you: the driving pressure, that means for SVR you need the difference between mean arterial pressure minus central venous pressure divided by cardiac output. So for pulmonary vascular resistance, you just need to differentiate the values of mean PA pressure minus pulmonary arterial occlusion pressure divided by cardiac output. Okay, so as you calculate using the standard values, you get their values as millimeter of mercury divided by liter per minute. This is, as we had already discussed, Wood's unit. But when you see the options in the MCQ, they are expressed in dyne into second divided by centimeter to the power 5. So when you convert this millimeter of mercury and liter and minute to the respective other units, like liter is converted to cubic millimeter and second is converted to minutes, so there comes a conversion factor which is 80, right? So we can consider 1 Wood's unit equals to 80 dyne into second by centimeter to the power 5. Okay, so when you calculate in an MCQ, just put all the values and multiply with factor 80 to get the values in dyne into second divided by centimeter power 5, or else you need to check whether the options are in Wood's unit or not. If they are in Wood's unit, you can calculate it as it is without using the conversion factor 80. Okay, hope you are clear about this concept. Read more about it. Thank you.